So, with regard to my foolishness, which is significant, I have absolutely disgraced myself by becoming infatuated with a young lady over a period of a couple of years. And it's been almost quite the scandal, I think, at a certain point. And this is what has occurred. And I have been very, I've received some quite strong criticism from my wife on this score, and from my sister also, explaining that I am indeed a fool to go down certain paths or to allow myself whatever. But I do somewhat disagree. I do somewhat disagree with them because, well, I think there are extenuating circumstances. I am an elderly gentleman who's lived alone now for about 14 years. And having a young lady visiting my house for a couple of hours a week, a young lady with whom I had many things in common. We shared many perspectives. A young lady who had already caught my eye. I thought she was attractive. And at first, of course, she came to clean, and she cleaned, and we chatted a little, and then the chats became longer. I enjoyed them so much, I would hardly allow her to get away cleaning. I'd have had her for another couple of hours, you know. I was becoming infatuated by that point. And in fairness, a couple of years ago, no, a year ago, perhaps a little longer, I had become quite unwell. I'd become very morose. I was following premillennial doctrines of an Italian group of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. The whole outlook seemed to be very dire. I was stockpiling food, preparing for the end of times, and my spirit was quite low. And then I caught what probably most people would call COVID, but I don't know what it was. I got something which was obviously fairly unpleasant, and it lingered for about 6 weeks of fever and listlessness. And I really started to feel that the end was nigh. And of course it is, I suppose. But I became a little bit miserable, more miserable than usual. It is possible. And she cheered me up so much. I think she saw it, you see. And then a few days later, you know, she came to my house, uninvited, taking a dog with her, and invited me to come for a walk with her along the river, which I did, and enjoyed greatly. And then these invitations then multiplied, and we ended up doing many things together, and I became more and more fond of her, of course. And I started to invite her here and there, as one does. But I didn't sense that there was any romantic interest, and she had explained that she had another relationship with a gentleman, and with whom there was no romantic attachment. You know, she was a sort of a friends person. But of course, I suppose my conceit might have persuaded me that I could make an exception to such a rule. It became an infatuation, and there's a word for it which I've learned recently. I was watching a video. What was it called? Now I'll have to look it up. For this kind of infatuation, for an impossible relationship, it's a thing. You know, it happens it's quite common, I think. It's quite common. And I became involved in this sort of a situation where I made a classic fool of myself. But I don't think I'm glad it happened. I couldn't have. Once I'd realised that I was becoming infatuated, I couldn't allow that to. Once I'd taken stock of that, I was in denial for quite a long time. I didn't want it to be because I knew what it would imply. But once I'd taken stock of that, then I had to address the matter. It had to be sorted out one way or the other. One way or the other. And I sort of, I put this young lady on the spot. I call her a young lady. She's not that much younger than me, but she certainly is younger than me. I don't want anybody to think that I'm talking about, sort of very young girls. No, no, no. Age appropriate. Age appropriate, somewhat. Yes, it's an embarrassing situation. It's an embarrassing situation to be declaring oneself in love at my age, and then to be rejected. Oh my dear! Oh, it's so upset. Such wounded pride, and I thought about it. You see, because I've only ever really propositioned one other woman in my entire life, and she rejected me too. Because with my wife and with other women who've been in my life, it's generally been the woman that has made herself available to me. So I was going, I didn't really have to expose myself in any way to ridicule. The door had already been opened, as it were, when I reached the end of the drive. I don't mean to be crude, but you know what I mean, sort of thing. The castle was already overcome when I arrived with my shining armor. There was no battle to be fought. But this is only once in my life there's another young lady who I just fancied, and I just was bold enough to ask her out, and she said no. So there was that time, and then never again until this young lady, and the result was similar. But I do appreciate the feeling of vulnerability, though. That's something that is taught me. I've spoken about it in another video. That's important, because if we're not vulnerable, we can't feel pain, right? And we can't feel love. And the thing that we need to have in our world, if we follow the Holy Bible and we follow our Heavenly Father, the thing that's missing somewhat in the world is love. Love is an action, it's a verb. To love one another means something. It's a serious matter. And it's being disregarded or it's being misconstrued, I'm afraid. Love is an individual thing. It starts in your heart, okay? So you need to love somebody. That's a foundational human need. You need to love somebody. Now, if you think that you're an ascetic or a wizard or something, and you will redirect your love energy to some other force, I mean, you can do what you want with it, but the human condition, shall we say, is that we need to love somebody first, because that's the ultimate expression of love. When you reach out and take somebody's hand and you hug them and you say, "I'm going to look after you," or "I want to be with you." That's love. That's a beautiful thing. It's a very vulnerable and humbling thing to do. But it's a true expression of love. And then you form a couple. And if you're young, you have children. If you're not, you form a couple which will be more solid than standing alone. The Bible is very clear upon this matter. Living alone is all very well and good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had 14 years of it. I'm a fan, but I'd rather live with a lady. Oh yes, I would. I'm stupid, am I? I value women very highly, very highly. And we need physical contact, you see. This is the thing that's missing. This is the intimacy that's I find most missing in my life as a single man. Physical intimacy. Now I have no, if my daughter were living nearby, I can be physically intimate with my daughter to a certain extent, of course. I can embrace her, very warmly. I can kiss her cheek. I don't, without crossing any boundaries. I can stroke her arm. We have a degree of physical intimacy. But she's not, you see, or my wife also. My wife and I are physically intimate with one another. I'm not talking about, coitus or, any kind of erotic, sensual maybe, but erotic, I don't know, whatever floats people's boats, to be perfectly honest. I think as you get older and those things matter far less, but I mean they still matter to some extent. Oh yes, I think they should. Why not? If one still has a desire for such things, we should celebrate our bodies. Praise the Lord. And so it's an expression of love, and so love starts with the individual. So there's all these people that are walking around, singles, the modern singles. You're 70 years old and you're just single because you can't contemplate the idea of forming a relationship, or because nobody will, talk to you or whatever. You're not doing anything of any great service to the liberation of mankind from its oppression. In fact, you're doing something of a disservice, really. Because the whole love energy has to start on an individual level. That's where you start to release it, you see. And then you release it into the community, through the community. What happens when you get a lot of single people milling around one another of various ages, as you get courtship rituals taking place, and they're fine, but they exist for, courtships can't last for more than really a season. I would have thought would be perfectly adequate, you see. And then people can pair off, and have a relationship. Oh my Lord, scandal. And they can do together, they will be stronger, they can do more things, they don't have to rule, there's no It's a free, it's a freely formed union, for heaven's sake, and it's founded on love. That's the expression of that's the primal expression of love, right? I mean, and from that, of course, spring children and family. If the participants are, of childbearing age, as it were, and blessed by God. So that's the foundation of love, actually. And so in the 1960s, they got it right, free love to some extent. Did they not? But of course, it was then perverted, was it not? Because promiscuity became so fashionable. But promiscuity is a wicked lie, and anybody who's engaged in it at any length will know how destructive it is. There's no peace. There's no rest for the wicked, the Bible does say. Oh, you don't want to get involved in that stuff. Choose your husband or choose your wife, Don't be messing around. I mean, if you can have 2 or 3 wives, according to the Bible, you young ladies, don't be thinking that your husband is going to be entirely satisfied unless you do all your duties properly. I'm being facetious, don't even bother.